I wanted to make eye to wear something that felt like me in a bottle, but something that complemented my skin. Something that I could wear with multiple layers to what is on my skin already. Like when I wear cocoa butter or shea butter or even just like, moisturize like a little bit, something that worked with that. But also something to give me a sense of like purpose, belonging, that when I'm wearing it, I can step by my step and give me that kind of sense of familiarity that boosts my moves, that like gives me that, stride. It's not comfort in a passive way, it's more of a like a knowing. It's almost like I can check myself a little bit when I wear it. I smells like home and warmth and an uncle's embrace and an auntie's hug. In terms of notes, the main is vetiver, which is the root that comes from Haiti primarily. It's a very laborious process to excavate the root because it grows about 2 meters deep, and it's made into big bales. But vetiver, is one of about 70% of the world's vetiver comes from Haiti. Alongside that, amaryllis wood, which also comes from Haiti and throughout the Caribbean. It's sometimes known as West Indian sandalwood. But I love amaryllis for what it is on its own without the sandalwood comparison. It's a sweet, warm, light, just feels clean and feels very smooth and has that like close to skin feel. Cocoa butter is a big note in there for sure. And bay leaf and nutmeg and cinnamon kind of act together, but I wanted to keep bay leaf as one of the notes because it, for me, it is very reminiscent of the cooking process. It's an important one, you've got to time right. Can't put it in too early, can't put it in too late. But also the particular, fresh bay leaf has this real consistency to it. It's quite tenacious. It lasts like a long time in your hands. In Jamaica, I got to actually come across some real bay leaf, and I like that tenacity translates to the perfume really well. In the top, there's also like orange heart, so it doesn't quite feel like juice. Doesn't quite feel like the zest. Doesn't feel like the pith. It's like if the very core, the molten core of an orange. That's what it would be. And there's a marine side to this, which is a kind of like a mineral marine side, almost like seashells. It kind of has that feel to it, that sheen from a seashell, and that kind of pleasant, slight saltiness from that too. But yeah, like I've wanted to communicate. And again, like skin is such a multifaceted thing. When I talk about it smells like home, you can't really break that into like a single note. It's more of a texture, it's more of a feeling, it's more of a rhythm that it takes people to. That's what it smells like. I'm just thinking back to all the different versions of it, like it's actually mad when I deep it. It started off as a creative exercise where I was tasked to make the smell of a colour, and I picked from a load of colours at random. The one I happened to get is a colour called buff, which is kind of like my complexion. It's like an off brown, or like light brown. And in the very beginning, I didn't know what I didn't know at that point, technically speaking. I started playing with some ideas that felt like warm skin, like sun-kissed skin, like almost a little bit like you're at the beach. There was a tiny little hint of like suntan lotion, but more that relief, like when you close your eyes on a beach and you can see like a warm red instead of black, if that makes sense. It's just that hugging you get when you're in like such a humid or warm space. And I went through 4 different versions of just the initial sketches when I was just going with bath alone. And it was this peachy texture. And I arrived at something good, and I was like, okay, this is nice, but I knew that I wasn't technically there yet to like execute it how I wanted. Because I think, to make something smell like warm skin is like, there's an infinite amount of things you can do, but when I found that precise mix of something that was kind of like lactone-y, slightly milky, peachy, but also a little bit fuzzy, that's when I knew I'd hit like a pocket. But that went on to mix with another record that I came up with at my studio at the time. That originally was for incense, revolving around vetiver, trying to bring out the warmth of vetiver, the kind of clay-like texture of vetiver, take away the like green, like screechy side, and make it feel more like a root that's being handled, like a root that's being held by hands, and again really warm. And it was versions after versions of mixing those two ideas over the course of 2 years. Again, I'm thinking more and more into this idea of skin, but like what goes on behind that, what's in the food that we eat, what is in the, how can I start to introduce these materials, tangible things that might be found in the kitchen or around the home or in ceremony, like incense. How can I like introduce them in ways that is so subliminal that collectively they build that sense of knowing, but you could never identify them on their own in the part of this thing. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's gone through like 4 names, and it's countless versions. This was over a dozen to get to the point of like refinement. But from those first sketches, it's come a long way. Well, a lot of this process, again, like when I'm making something that was me, felt very much like trying to make me in a bottle, but like skin in general. It was mad important that I didn't just make it about my skin, and especially the idea of like sun-kissed skin, and melanated skin. I wanted to talk to a lot of people about it, and a huge part of the 2 years process was sharing it, my sketches, sharing my demos with people. Obviously they were safe to wear and that, I'm not a dickhead. But yeah, I knew it was ready when I was told it was ready by people. Not in a literal sense of this feels complete necessarily, but and not in like an approval way, but it was more what people wouldn't say. It was like clocking people's eyes and where they would go, and they would like look off into a distance, or kind of have like a slightly like reassured curiosity on their face, like they're kind of like happily confused. And I'd listen to how many times people would say it reminds me of home, or it reminds me of water, or being by the waterside. That's when I knew it was done. It was talking to people, and that was a huge part of the creation of it. Was I didn't want to lean into this, idea or this trope that like perfume is this very secretive, magical like act that's made. I had my canaries, who were the complete other side of like fragrance knowledge or whatever, just to talk to and to hear what they had to say. And again, really truly listen to when people would say it reminds me of a family member, or it reminds me of a family setting, or it reminds me of being back home, not in this country, or like, when I got that enough times, that's when I knew it was done. In how it sits on my skin, I can't smell it and like not smile. I like legit, smell it before like a driving test or like somewhere, and I just find I get calm. But it was also for me personally like, the experience of living outside of London, in a new environment that I hadn't lived in before, on my own, smelling it. I could wear it and just walk like. Not like I own the streets, but just like I own my next footstep, truly like belong there. But yeah, I think I call it the signature for that reason, because I think it's it's like me in a bottle. And again, it's something that I think while it holds its own character consistently, it still is really multifaceted on different skin types and on different people. I really wanted to lean into that side of it. So I think, it's a signature that can be written in different handwriting. I think this is like a signature of a certain time. It's definitely something that I can see evolving. This is done for what it is. This is like a complete thing for sure, but it's also where I'm at now. This might be different in a decade. This might be different in 2, 3. So this is super like autobiographical for where I'm at now, but like in that it's like what I'm looking at in the industry, who I'm around, what I'm trying to do with this, and again like who I'm trying to connect to. This is made so like we can go to spaces and hold that sense of belonging on our skin, and I think that's a big part of where I'm at now, which I hope will evolve and grow, you know, as I do as well. But yeah, technically speaking, I think this is on a certain level for my technical ability now, and I'm only 5 years in, so let's see in 15. I hope that it can become one of many tangible means to again connect to that sense of like I can move where I choose, regardless of how others are in that environment towards me. I can still move here. The fragrance itself uses materials like cinnamon, bay leaf, cardamom, frankincense. All of these quite in their own way like ancestral materials that have been used for generations and generations. So I hope expanding and exploring this fragrance for a kid, I hope it could bring them back to not just their childhood, but to means to connect to their parents' childhood, their grandparents' childhood, and in that way start to reconnect lineage in a circumstance where it's not always easy to trace history of our families. But ultimately, I hope it brings joy. I hope it's something that someone can look back on and carry with them fondly. But in the same way, something that ages well. I mean, literally in terms of how it macerates, 25 years of it, it's pretty good. But no, also just making a scent profile that I wanted to feel like comes from the body, rather than a trend of using certain materials, whatever. Something that feels like is being brought, history is being brought into the present. So I hope this for the future 25-year-old, they can relive some of the joy of their parents' youth, but also make their own new memories and make their own way. It was crazy, in most cabs I got in, if they didn't ask, because sometimes they would be like, oh wait, what's that? They smell good. And I would, oh, thank you. But a lot of the time I just asked them if they like fragrance, because it's how I roll. And they loved it. They would always be open. And some of the feedback was just, amazement. They were wowed, gratefully, they were like, oh my Lord, what is this? Where can I buy it straight away? That wasn't even a question. But some would stop and think about it, not for too long while I drive it, but some of them would just be super excited, especially when I told them I worked in a lab and stuff. They're like, whoa, they've never heard that kind of thing before. But also, not in a fragrance lab anyway. But some of it, was that kind of nuance where their eyes just start to wonder, or I just kind of see them they start to kind of almost glimpse a little bit, and I can see that they're being transported somewhere. And for some, they didn't really have many words to say, but I knew that it would move them. But I think for a lot of people, it was again really humbling to hear them say oh, it smells like home. And to have heard someone who's of Jamaican descent in London say that, and then someone actually in Kingston say that was again more evidence that this was ready. Definitely raised by the village mentality of this one. But yeah, also this the name, I like people hearing it and instantly like getting it, just feeling it, and when they would compliment it, they would compliment themselves too. But yeah, I think as well the name deya, not having to people hearing deya and they get it immediately as well. I think that was one of the most relieving things, was when I'd show this, it was almost like I didn't need to explain anything. People understood it, people felt it immediately, and it brought smiles to faces like straight away, and that's the joy that I hope to bring with it. This fragrance definitely has presence without being obnoxious. It has like a sense of almost like a halo that's kind of around you when you're wearing it. It's quite intimate, but you know that it's in the room. It's there, and I think that goes to the intention of deya. When we say like Medea, you're not just gonna pull up maybe, you're not just gonna see if you're gonna roll through, like you're holding that space, you're gonna come through. The vetiver water link, well, it came apart through Anik, who's our engineer. Big ups. But it was through me learning about the process of distillation, how the essential oils are actually made, the energy that it takes, like the labour behind them. There's a lot that goes into it and a lot that comes out, and the vetiver water was one of the materials that just wasn't being used. I got fortunately connected to some suppliers, distillers directly, and they would tell me that the water is often just a waste product. It doesn't really have a use. They run it through the still like a few times to get the maximum yield out of it, and then it's just thrown away. And I managed to get some sent over, and smelling it was just different to what I'd smelled before. I think through COVID, when I was my sense of smell, I started to realise when the absence of the kind of character was there, but the sensation was still present, I would notice that like a lot of duty-free perfumes, they really like hit the front of your nose. They're very sharp and spiky. Whereas like smelling or trying to smell the water, it has this kind of vaporous quality to it. It feels like it's expanding from the center of your nose, and again that kind of hugs it. And I think especially with this idea of warmth with sun-kissed skin, to evoke that sense of humidity, the vetiver water in texture kind of carries this halo-like effect, where it feels like it's like glowing or radiating from you almost. But yeah, also in terms of the actual content, water content itself in a perfume is relatively quite low. Often it will be under 10% at that. I wanted to push it a bit higher, so I made an eighth of this to be the upcycled water. So when you wear it, it's not going to dry your skin out as much, because we don't like ashy skin. It's never the one. So I wanted something that genuinely feels great to wear, feels in some ways semi-moisturizing, or at least complements what is already there, rather than just to dry it out and to leave your skin flaky. We don't like that. Often it's made into too much of a kind of precise, almost prescriptive ordeal. Whereas most perfumers know that a notes list in no way is a true claim to what is actually inside. It's more of a mood board. It's more of an idea that's there to like put into people's minds. And I think there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But I think when people feel like they get it right or wrong, there's this binary of right or wrong of what this guessing game, this like scent bingo. It's sometimes it can kind of leave people out of building a new relationship to that smell, or using that fragrance and having connections to that fragrance or that scent in a different context. But I'd want people to be able to find their own interpretation, and I'd hope that it could encourage more conversation as to why they might make a connection to a certain note. If you smell lavender, absolutely, in which there is. Where is that lavender? Is it at your grandparents' house? What year? How old are you when you're having this memory or this flashback? If you're smelling wood and whiskey, like who are you sitting with? Are you drinking it? Are you watching someone drink it? What time of year is it? I'm interested in people taking this and running with it and having space to self-reflect, having that memory mining moment where it's more endearing for the wearer to see the note almost as a catalyst to where they can then either find memories and excavate memories or to build new ones. It doesn't necessarily need to be right or wrong situation. This isn't necessarily again prescriptive to anybody. Where I'm coming from, being raised in London, being raised to British and Jamaican grandparents, in my history, in my family. But ultimately, like, I wanted this to become something that can extend to anyone. I'm not saying that it's necessarily for everybody, rightfully so, but again, it has enough space for people to build their own understanding to it. It's multifaceted enough. There are 66 different materials in here. On purpose, it could have been way more refined, but I wanted that level of nuance that isn't out of weight and out of balance and overly complicated, but the complexity of it was there. So again, it brings out different things on different people, on their different skin types, and it can take many forms, as I said, like the same signature in different handwriting. I think the main thing I want people to feel is like, it could be a potential conversation starter as to understanding each other's backgrounds, cultures more, or even just like something that simply evokes joy in that moment, and they can move with that. The key is never to rub too hard. People be trying to start fires with their wrists. It's not the way, because the friction creates heat, and the heat starts to break it apart. You just want to slowly rub it like this. And for me, I like to use the wrists, maybe even slightly higher up, but then collarbone, and one on the back of the neck. And you can do more or less, it's up to you, but just take time. Sweet.